I move the report that the doors be opened. Merci beaucoup. Alors, déclaration des députés, statements by members. L'honorable.
The honourable member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, the SNC-Lavalin affair is jeopardizing thousands of jobs. Trans Mountain has cost billions to taxpayers, and the shipyard strategy has caused 1,000 jobs lost at the Davie shipyard. And not to forget the most spectacular federal fiasco, Muskrat Falls. Ottawa loaned $8 billion of public money, that's our money, Quebecers' money, to Newfoundland to build a dam that would compete with Hydro-Quebec. $8 billion for a dam that will work at a loss in a province going bankrupt that will never be paid back. It's Quebecers paying for this. And this is going to harm Quebec. That's what it is when we are represented by people who do not represent our interests. We want people working for Quebec, not against Quebec. And what Quebec wants, the Bloc wants.
Member for Don Valley North.
Mr. Speaker, last night marked the official end of the two-week Spring Festival 2019, which was celebrated in Canada and around the world. Ever since I was a child, the annual Spring Festival has remained one of my favorite holidays. I will always remember the fireworks, food, red pockets, and the family gatherings that accompanied the celebrations. For the last 2 weeks, we have enjoyed spending time with our families and friends while remembering the contributions made by our ancestors. Canada's strength comes from the richness of our cultures and the diversity of our people. So as we celebrate the Year of the Pig in 2019, we must all do our part to keep improving this country that we love. Thank you.
The honourable member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I want to recognize two individuals who have been important members of our community for years and who have recently celebrated significant birthdays. Albert McConnell of Kilsyth, who just turned 90, moved to Kilsyth in 1942 with his parents and 6 siblings when he was just 16 years old. Ab immediately bought his first registered Hereford cows and a few years later expanded into sheep farming. Ab continued to farm beef cattle with his 3 sons for over 70 years until he retired in 2015. John Garvey of Owen Sound just celebrated his 95th birthday. John refereed hockey and broomball for over 50 years, retiring at age 80. But John continued to umpire baseball for over 70 years, retiring at age 90. He still golfs 3 to 4 times a week, recording scores a 40-year-old would be proud to achieve. Mr. Speaker, please join me in celebrating Albert and John, 2 remarkable men from my riding.
The honourable member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to highlight the courage and contribution of an exceptional woman, Sylvie Boyer from Saint-Rémy. A mother, dairy producer, and devoted volunteer, Sylvie, bit by bit, saw her commitment to physical and mental health bear fruit. In 2014, after both her children suffered head injuries, Sylvie took on as her mission to improve the well-being of people with head injuries and disabilities. And she worked on the establishment of the very first multifunctional, dedicated complex. This initiative was called Vent d'Espoir, and it constantly receives new sources of support. The project is going well, and one centre is already operational. But recently, Sylvie and her team received an extra helping hand, $50,000, for winning the Vive les Régions competition from Pioneer. Congratulations to Vent d'Espoir, and we hope to continue hearing good news. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize the International Year of Indigenous Languages. Across Canada, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people speak their languages with pride and honor. In my riding of Dason at the Mississippi-Churchill River, many communities speak only in Cree, Dene, Michif, or Michif Cree. Guided by our elders, we are encouraged to speak our languages. With our youth in mind, we work hard to make sure that our languages will be spoken for generations to come. I'm proud of the work being done for our languages to thrive again. Just last night, I had the honor to meet Elder Marcia Ireland, who taught the Heritage Committee about the Indigenous sign languages and how important but forgotten they are. It's clear to me that First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people are doing the work to have our languages prosper. I call on all members of this House to do their part to help the Indigenous people in their communities educate others about their language. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Brome-Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, February 1st, I participated in the launch of the MADA policy, the Age-Friendly Cities policy, at the Georges Perron Bedford Centre. The goal of this action plan is to improve the quality of services provided to seniors in 8 municipalities in my riding: Bedford, Notre-Dame de Stanbridge, Pike River, Saint-Armand, Saint-Ignace de Stanbridge, Stanbridge East, Stanbridge Station, and the City of Bedford. The success of a project like this one depends on the involvement of people from the area. And during the launch, I met Lucie Hébert and Lucie Lacroix, who care deeply about the well-being of our seniors. I also traveled throughout my riding and had an opportunity to meet extraordinary people who are working on the well-being of seniors. Congratulations on your involvement, and congratulations for contributing to the life of Brome-Missisquoi.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes a tragedy can give way to a glimmer of hope. Last July, 43-year-old Darren Moore was tragically killed by a drug-impaired driver. He left behind his wonderful family, his wife Pam, and their 3 children, Daphne, Clayton, and Jasper. He was dedicated to his family, and this was so clear in his dedication to rare diseases. His son Jasper is living with MPS 6, and this drove Darren to volunteer with the Isaac Foundation, which provides support and hope for families living with this disease. To honor Darren, the community came together in Palmerston on Monday's Family Day to host Darren's Day. Events included a snow pitch tournament, games of shinny, plunger toss, and an intense fire truck pulling competition between the Minto Fire Department and the Wellington County OPP. All the funds raised will benefit local community projects, including those with Minto Minor Sports and Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington. Mr. Speaker, let Darren's commitment to his family and our community be an example for us all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Charlemagne.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to welcome to the Hill today representatives of the National Association of Federal Retirees. They represent more than 176,000 federal public servants, Canadian Armed Forces, RCMP, and federally appointed judges.
Every member of Parliament knows that the call to public service is a powerful one. We know what it is to feel proud when we contribute to the vitality and strength of our communities, and all those ways that we can contribute. The Canadian Public Service is renowned internationally for its expertise, its professionalism, and its excellence.
Voices campaign, the Association is here today to highlight the priorities of seniors, and I look forward to hearing from them. Mr. Speaker, we recognize the work of our public servants and thank them for all that they do. Merci.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to highlight the exceptional contribution of Mr. Noel Audet to the well-being of all Canadians. One of Mr. Audet's preferred activities is giving blood. He is a resident of Bourassa, and he first gave blood to Héma Québec in 1969. Today, he is doing it for the 320th time. Every donation of blood can save 4 lives. And therefore, Monsieur Audet has made a difference in the lives of 1,280 individuals. This is a precious contribution because we know that 1,000 contributions of blood are collected every day to meet the needs of hospitals in Quebec. The Prime Minister of Canada congratulated him on his extraordinary contribution, and I am very pleased to give the medal to Noel Audet from Bourassa. Congratulations.
Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, life is becoming more unaffordable for Canadians under this Liberal government. In Edmonton Centre, a Liberal-held riding, people are finding it harder to get by. Data released earlier this month by Statistics Canada showed that unemployment is still above pre-recession levels in Edmonton. People in Edmonton and across the country are also finding it harder to buy homes due to higher interest rates and more stringent regulation. As people in Glenora, Westmount, Inglewood, Laurier Heights see their disposable income drop, this government's adding more taxes and introducing legislation like Bill C-69. If this bill comes into effect, the unemployment rate in Edmonton Centre will increase. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister and his team will raise taxes and will make life more expensive for Canadians. We can't afford another 4 years of these disastrous policies. The people from Edmonton Centre haven't been heard by their Member of Parliament or this government, and under a Conservative government, Edmonton Centre residents will be heard.
The Honourable Member for Brampton South.
I rise today to pay tribute to the memory of Riya Rajkumar, who lost her life in Brampton last week on Valentine's Day in a senseless act of violence. As a mother of three, I cannot imagine the horror of losing a child. My heart goes out to Riya's family and loved ones. I want to thank Brampton City Council for organizing a vigil in Brampton South last night. Hundreds of community members attended to pay their respects and remember Riya. Mr. Speaker, it was because of our very professional Peel Region Police and broadcasted an Amber Alert that police were able to make a fast arrest. When it comes to protecting our children, it is never inconvenient. And Mr. Speaker, thank you to the Neighbourhood Watch community program for raising the money needed for Riya's funeral, which happened earlier today. I know all members of this House are keeping Riya and her family in their thoughts and her prayers. Rest in peace, little Riya Rajkumar.
L'honorable député de Laurentides-Labelle.
The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 30th anniversary of the Laurentides and Pays d'en Haut Medical Foundation. Our foundation serves 32 municipalities, several institutions, and has invested more than $9.5 million in medical equipment and nearby health services. The success of an organization depends on its people, and I'd like to highlight the commitment of its founding members and current and past presidents.
Forge, Raymond Douillard, Pierre Forgette, Marie-Pierre Fournier, Peter Hamé, Lise Etu, Laurent Tremblay, Lise Forgette-Terrien, Feu Marc Desjardins, Michel Frenette, Justin Rassette, Nancy Wilson et Michel Rochon, ainsi que toutes
as well as all those who gave of themselves over the years to form such a fantastic family of volunteers in the community. These people make us proud because they show that together we can go far. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.
Here's this Prime Minister's list of mistakes grows. His 2019 carbon tax is just the beginning of what he wants Canadians to pay. With winter upon us, the Prime Minister's carbon tax means hundreds more for home heating and 11 cents a litre more in every gas tank to drive to work, to take the kids to hockey, or to buy groceries. That's no mistake. The Prime Minister intends to make Canadians pay more. When asked about the soaring cost of gas in Vancouver, the Prime Minister admitted that's what we're trying to achieve. Well, it's only the beginning. For it to do what he wants it to do, the Prime Minister's carbon tax will become prohibitively expensive, and Canadians, half of whom say they aren't getting by each month, will pay at every turn. Right. Canadians should not be punished for a warm home in winter or driving to work, nor should they just get by. In October, Canadians can stop paying for Liberal failures and choose Conservative leadership to get ahead.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, every February we celebrate Black History Month by acknowledging the contributions that Canadians of African and Caribbean descent have made to Canada. I recently participated in a Black History Month event at the Middleville East Apostolic Church, where Pastor Melvin McGann and his congregation opened their doors to the Scarborough community. We celebrated individuals like Viola Desmond, a prominent Black woman whose bravery and courage changed the course of Canadian history by refusing to leave a whites-only area of a movie theater. I am proud that Desmond is featured on the new $10 bill. One of the speakers was Ida Saidu, owner of the A Different Booklist bookstore. Noting this is Canada's first vertical bill, Saidu said, "This was important because we have got to stand up." Mr. Speaker, let us all stand up and recognize the contributions of Canadians of African and Caribbean descent this month and every month. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to pay tribute to a great Montrealer who died on February 1st at the age of 84, Ms. Lucia Kowalik. Social worker, committed citizen of the Milton Park neighbourhood, a pacifist, an environmentalist, and a feminist, Lucia worked for decades for people in need and social housing. She helped found Montreal's Urban Ecology Centre, a day centre for the homeless, and she advocated for turning the former Hôtel Dieu Hospital into social housing and community centres. In 2014, she received the Order of Canada, and she was named Knight of the Ordre National du Québec. In her memory, let us continue to support Saint-Urbain's community project so that the Hôtel Dieu Hospital can become a healthy, inclusive, and green space for all Montrealers.
The Honourable Member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister continues to fail, and Canadians are paying for it. In a recent survey, half of Canadians admit they're having trouble making their household budget stretch to the end of each month. No wonder. Under this Prime Minister, 2018 finished with worker unemployment and participation rates down, wages flat, and household debt climbing. Amid talk of a looming recession, and as layoffs and plant closures are announced in our energy and auto sectors, it's clear that this Prime Minister has turned his back on workers. Worse, the only thing going up for Canadians this year is taxes. This Prime Minister, who doesn't worry about money, is happy to let Canadians pay for his mistakes. Payroll taxes are up. The Prime Minister's carbon tax is driving up the cost of fuel and home heating, and Liberal taxes will go even higher if given the chance again. Canadians will have a choice this year. They can stop paying for Liberal mistakes and choose conservative leadership to get ahead. Thank
you. L'honorable député de Gatineau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we have the good fortune to have two of the greatest Canadian athletes in Canada. Welcome. Today, they are here as ambassadors and partners of the Canadian Olympic team.
Decorated male figure skater in Canadian history, a 3-time world and 10-time national champion. He won gold in the team event at the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics. Camille Bérubé,
Camille Bérubé is from Gatineau, and she was one of the Pan-American Olympic stars, and she won a silver medal and 2 bronze in the para-swimming team. In 2016, she was amongst the 10 best.
Merci Camille for inspiring Canadians everywhere.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we learned this morning in La Presse that the Director of Public Prosecutions told SNC-Lavalin on September 4th that there would be no remediation agreement. The Prime Minister met with the former Justice Minister 2 weeks later to discuss this file. Who asked for this meeting? The Prime Minister We assume our responsibilities at all times. We defend jobs in Canada, and we're continuing to make sure that all Canadians have access to the best possible jobs. That's what we've always done, by making sure that our justice system has integrity and by respecting all standards that are in place. We want to deliver for Canadians while respecting our institutions. That's what we have always done. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Wasn't the question. The question was who asked for the meeting between the Prime Minister and the former Attorney General. Now, we know that that meeting took place on September 17th. The Director of Public Prosecutions ruled on September 4th that SNC-Lavalin would not be entitled to a special deal. So once again, who asked for the meeting? Was it the Prime Minister or the former Attorney General?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For the work that both the Ethics Commissioner and the Justice Committee of Parliamentarians will be doing on this matter. But I can assure all Canadians that unlike the Leader of the Opposition, we will always stand up for good jobs right across this country every step of the way, while making sure we respect the independence of our judicial system.
Order. Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is certainly not acting like someone who is innocent of these serious allegations. Now, once again, on September 17th, he has admitted that he had a meeting with the former Attorney General. Canada's top prosecutor had already decided, with her independent analysis, that SNC-Lavalin was not entitled to a special deal. So once again, who asked for the meeting? There are only two options. It was either the Prime Minister or the former Attorney General. Which was it?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Be apologetic for standing up consistently for good Canadian jobs and for standing up for the independence of our judicial system and the important processes in place. Of course, Mr. Speaker, the meetings that I have with any member of Cabinet are covered by Cabinet confidentiality, but you can be sure that every step of the way we both stand up for Canadians and look to serve them and stand up for our institutions that keep us all safe in this country.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I note that he can't answer that simple question. Now, the decision by the top prosecutor in Canada not to grant SNC-Lavalin a special deal was made on September 4th. On September 17th, the Prime Minister met with the former Attorney General. Was the Prime Minister aware of the Director of Public Prosecution's decision when he had that meeting?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, we take very seriously the responsibility of defending good jobs right across this country while we stand up and protect the institutions that serve us all in this country. Those are the two things that are central tenets for this government and that we will always continue to do. Of course, Mr. Speaker, there are right now two ongoing court cases on this matter, and it would be inappropriate for us to comment too much on that.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the best way to respect the independence of Canada's judicial system is to not interfere with it. Now, this was a very simple yes or no question. This isn't about speculation, about an ongoing investigation. This is a yes or no question. Was the Prime Minister aware of Canada's top prosecutor's decision when he had the meeting with the former Attorney General? Yes or no?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, this is a file that touches tens of thousands of Canadians right across the country, including 9,000 direct jobs and communities right across the country. Of course, we're going to be very careful about how we move forward in protecting those jobs, but we're also going to, at the same time, make sure that we are standing up for the independence of our judicial system and all the processes that keep our democratic institutions safe.
Alors.
Order, please.
On a député de Remus qui n'est jamais
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Néjet-Témiscouata Basque. This is what we know. The Director of Public Prosecutions had officially rejected a remediation agreement for SNC-Lavalin on September 4th. The Prime Minister met with the former Minister of Justice 2 weeks later to discuss this file. The next day, SNC-Lavalin lobbyists managed to get 4 meetings with ministers and senior officials. That's some coincidence. Why this meeting between the Prime Minister and the former Minister of Justice? Why was it necessary? Why this lobbying blitz? Can the Prime Minister explain this? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As a government, we have always defended jobs and economic growth for Canadians while respecting the autonomy of our justice system and the rule of law. But if the member across the way doesn't want to take my word for it, here's a quote by the Director of Public Prosecutions who said last week, she said, in all circumstances, the Attorney General can use their discretionary power independently and has done. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, I want to know if there was political interference. There are so many questions we need answers to. The only person who knows what happened is the Prime Minister, and he's given us 5 different versions. We want the version of the former Minister of Justice because the Prime Minister refuses to give it to us. Now, the Prime Minister said everyone to laughing when he said that the Justice Committee was non-partisan. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, I will quote once again the Director of Public Prosecutions who last week confirmed that in all circumstances the Attorney General exerts her duties independently, quite apart from any partisan ideas. We respect the justice system and the rule of law. We will defend jobs, but at the same time, we shall respect judicial independence.
What day is this? Oh, it's Wednesday. New day, new excuse, new bombshell in the Jerry Butts SNC scandal. And this one's a doozy. It turns out that the Prime Minister met with the Justice Minister after they found out that the independent public prosecution wouldn't give the free get-out-of-jail card to SNC. So what happened in that meeting? Because it would represent a major interference in the independence of Canada's justice system. So will the Prime Minister give us a full airing and agree to an independent inquiry where his staff will be forced to testify?
The Prime Minister.
Opposite, we will always stand up for jobs. We will always stand up for the Canadian economy, but we will do that in ways that respect judicial independence and the rule of law. But if he doesn't choose to take my word for it, allow him to take directly from the Director of the Public Prosecution Service, who confirmed just last week that in every case, quote, prosecutors exercise their discretion independently and free from any political or partisan consideration.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay. Order.
Well, fair enough. They do stand up for jobs, the jobs of the lobbyists. I mean, he's led around the nose by lobbyists. The question is he willing to obstruct justice to help his lobbyist friends? Because, to live in the tawdry but very elite world of Jerry Butts and this Prime Minister. So was it Jerry's idea to strong-arm the Justice Department to help their insider friends? No wonder he doesn't want Jerry Butts testifying at committee. So to the Prime Minister, will he agree to allow Jerry Butts and his staff testify under oath so that we can get to the bottom? And by the way, is he willing to testify?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, once again, I have tremendous confidence in the members of the Justice Committee who will be moving forward in an investigation, indeed, of all sides, and indeed in the Ethics Commissioner who has taken this matter into under investigation. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, I want to once again thank Jerry Butts for his contributions to Canada. His letter of resignation speaks for itself. He continues to believe deeply in what this government and what this country is doing to help everyone.
Order. There's far too much noise. Members, of course, I know want to hear the questions and the answers and want to show respect for this institution. Now, the member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies should remember that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we know that the former Attorney General and Gerald Butts met at the Chateau Laurier September 5th to discuss SNC-Lavalin. When was the Prime Minister informed of this meeting? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we take very seriously our responsibility to defend jobs, increase economic growth, and respect our judicial system. This is why I can easily say that we've had many meetings with members of Cabinet on the subject of many issues that are important to the country. We want to deliver for Canadians, coast to coast to coast. We will do this while respecting our institutions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition
told his caucus that any communication coming from Mr. Butts should be considered as coming from the Prime Minister himself. So once again, when did the Prime Minister become aware of the December 5th meeting between Gerald Butts and the former Attorney General?
Honourable Prime Minister.
I recognize perhaps that it's a legacy of the Harper years. The Conservatives don't seem to understand that a team that works together actually has lots of people having meetings about things that matter all the time. We continue to engage in a broad way that both protects and upholds jobs in this country and respects the independence of our system and its judiciary. That is something that we expect from all members of Cabinet, of all my staff, and we work together to serve Canadians day in and day out.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There we are, Mr. Speaker. First, it was the former Attorney General's fault. Then it was the Director of Public Prosecution's fault. Then it was the Globe and Mail's fault. Then it was Scott Bryson's fault. Now we know it was Stephen Harper's fault. That's why he did what he did in this scandal, Mr. Speaker. Nobody's buying what he's trying to sell. Now, can the Prime Minister tell this House at any point in time did he ever express his support for a special deal for SNC-Lavalin to the former Attorney General? Yes or no?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see the Conservatives choosing to play political games with issues of deep importance. We remain focused, yes, on standing up for jobs and for standing up for the independence of our judiciary in this country. This is something we are going to consistently do, and we will make no apologies for standing strong in our principles to both protect and promote jobs in this country and uphold the rule of law and the independence of our judicial system.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, again, that wasn't the question. This is key to this entire affair of allegations of interference in a criminal proceeding. The Prime Minister, through an omnibus bill, gave the top prosecutor the option of using a deferred prosecution agreement. And she ruled in her independent manner that SNC-Lavalin did not qualify. At any point in time since that decision, has the Prime Minister expressed his support for this kind of deal for SNC-Lavalin? Yes or no?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite seems to be concerned about the independence of the Director of Public Prosecution Service. Well, let me speak directly to that by quoting her, who just last week confirmed that in every case, prosecutors, quote, exercise their discretion independently and free from any political or partisan considerations. Canadians can know that in this country we continue to abide by the rule of law.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, nobody is questioning the Director of Public Prosecutions exercising her authority. What we're questioning is whether or not the Prime Minister attempted to interfere in an ongoing criminal investigation. But that wasn't the question. The question was very, very simple. The top prosecutor of Canada ruled on September 4th that SNC-Lavalin did not qualify for this new kind of deal. At any point in time since that decision was made, has the Prime Minister expressed his support for SNC-Lavalin getting a deal, yes or no?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I have been unequivocal over the fall. I have been unequivocal now that we will always support Canadian jobs and growth of our economy. We will always stand up to protect workers right across the country. But we will always do that in ways that respect the independence of our judiciary, the rule of law, and the institutions that keep Canada one of the greatest democracies in the world.
Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, the Prime Minister can't have it both ways. He cannot hold up the independence of the Director of Public Prosecutions Office and at the same time interfere and attempt to get a reversal of a decision. Exactly. The decision not to give SNC-Lavalin was made on September 4th. The Prime Minister had a meeting with the former Attorney General on September 17th. Gerald Butts had a meeting with the former Attorney General on December 5th. Why would the Prime Minister have so many meetings with the former Attorney General if it wasn't to try to reverse a decision that had already been made?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Confirm right here in this House that we had many meetings between cabinet ministers and Prime Minister and Prime Minister's office on a broad range of important issues that matter to Canadians. It is the work of this government to serve Canadians, to protect jobs, and to protect our institutions and the independence of our judiciary at the same time. This is exactly what we do, what we will continue to do, and make no apologies for the snide accusations made by the members opposite.
Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister said that the Ethics Commissioner and the Justice Committee had to do their job to shed light about interference on the SNC-Lavalin file. But how can we get to the truth when he won't allow anyone in his office to appear before the committee? He refuses to waive solicitor-client privilege, which prevents the former Minister of Justice from giving her version of the facts. If the Prime Minister cares so much about the truth, he has to let her talk. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have complete respect for our judicial system. It's highly important to us. And we believe in the commitment to solicitor-client privilege. So I've asked the Attorney General to give me advice on this issue. I think it's important that Canadians hear the truth, but it must be understood that there is a real danger of unexpected consequences about the two issues now before us.
The Liberals on the Justice Committee refused to ensure that people from the Prime Minister's office would testify, not Jerry Butts and not the other officials who held dozens of meetings with SNC-Lavalin to discuss criminal charges. How will Canadians get to the truth if the Liberals refuse to invite people at the centre of this mess and the Prime Minister refuses to waive privilege to let the former Attorney General tell her story? He kept saying sunshine is the best disinfectant. So why is he content keeping Canadians in the dark?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, as I said, we look forward to the work that will be done by the Justice Committee, indeed by the Ethics Commissioner on this matter. It's extremely important that Canadians get to hear all the facts. We will continue to make sure that we're standing up for good jobs right across the country and upholding the independence of our judicial system. That is something that Canadians expect. That is something that we expect. In terms of waiving privilege, that's not a simple matter, and that's why we've asked the Attorney General for advice on this, because we know there's a danger of unintended consequences on the two court cases currently going through on this matter.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I want to give the Prime Minister another opportunity to answer a very simple question. He brags about having many, many meetings and robust discussion. So in any of those meetings, from the date that the Director of Public Prosecutions made her decision to the day that he removed the Attorney General from her post, did he at any time express his support for granting SNC-Lavalin a deferred prosecution agreement? Yes or no?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, as Canadians well know of this government, we will always stand up for good jobs. We will always stand up for economic growth. We will always make sure we're supporting Canadians right across this country. But we will also make sure we're doing it in ways that support and defend our institutions, that support and defend the independence of the rule of law, the independence of our judiciary. These are things that matter to Canadians. We are a government that has been delivering tangibly for them while at the same time defending our democracy and our institutions.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
If he did nothing wrong, he should be able to answer yes or no. Did he at any time tell the former Attorney General that he favoured giving SNC-Lavalin a special deal? Yes or no?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the members opposite have been talking an awful lot about solicitor-client privilege. It's also important to understand that discussions amongst the federal cabinet are covered by cabinet confidentiality as well. This is the work that we are doing to make sure that we are delivering for Canadians in terms of good jobs, in terms of economic growth, in terms of opportunities for all, while at the same time upholding the independence of our judiciary, the integrity of our democratic institutions, and we will always do that.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Again, Mr. Speaker, if he's done nothing wrong, he should be able to answer. Meetings at the Chateau Laurier between Gerald Butts and the former Attorney General aren't covered by cabinet confidentiality. Exactly. He should be able to tell Canadians, if he's done nothing wrong, if he hasn't interfered in an ongoing criminal prosecution case, has he ever told the former Attorney General that he favoured a special deal for SNC-Lavalin? Yes or no?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians can look at this government's record and know that step by step we have always stood up for them. We put more money in the pockets of the middle class by raising taxes on the wealthiest 1% and lowering them for the middle class. We've delivered a Canada Child benefit that has made a huge difference in people's lives, and we've also made sure that every step of the way we've stood up for good jobs across this country, and we will continue to. We will do so, however, always by respecting the independence of our judiciary and the institutions that protect us all in our democracy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It is so telling that the Prime Minister can't even answer this kind of simple question. These are not the actions and this is not the behaviour of someone who is innocent of what he is being accused of. On September 4th, the Independent Director of Public Prosecutions made a decision. The Prime Minister and his team then went to work and had several meetings with the former Attorney General. In any of those meetings, did he ever, and will he today, indicate whether or not he supports SNC-Lavalin getting a special deal, yes or no?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, to hear the member opposite, Canadians might be worried about the independence of our judicial system, but allow me to reassure them, not with my words, Mr. Speaker, but by a direct quote from the Director of Public Prosecutions herself, who just last week confirmed for Canadians that in every case, prosecutors, quote, exercise their discretion independently and free from any political or partisan consideration.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. The Liberals had promised to end subsidies for fossil fuels, but they're continuing. They even took $4.5 billion to buy an old pipeline. The Liberals had promised also for all energy projects there would be a climate assessment, but now we've learned that the Trans Mountain expansion will not be subjected to that. And so I have a question, because each time the Prime Minister says something, we see the opposite. Do the Liberals realize that in the fight against climate change, they really resemble Pinocchio a great deal? I would encourage the Honourable Member to choose his words carefully.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The NDP is talking about a choice between the environment and what's good for the economy. We know that the only way to create prosperity, economic prosperity, and to protect the environment in the years to come is to work on them together. That is why on the Trans Mountain Expansion Project we are following all of the procedures through the court set out by the court properly. Maritime transport, consultation with Indigenous peoples. This is the approach that we are taking. The Honourable Member.
Breaking promises to Canadians, you have to hand it to this Prime Minister, because right now on the Trans Mountain pipeline fiasco, he's doing a 2-for-1 deal. First, he promised to end all fossil fuel subsidies, but dumping $4.5 billion of our money on a 65-year-old pipeline wasn't enough. Now this pipeline-owning Prime Minister wants a further $2 billion subsidy from Canadians. Then Liberals promised that all pipelines would receive a climate change review as part of their approval. But here's a new guide for Canadians when listening to this Prime Minister. Listen closely and know that the truth is the opposite. When is he going to stop helping out his friends and start working to fight climate change?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on Trans Mountain pipeline expansion, we are following the path provided for by the courts in the right way. The courts said we needed to do better on consulting Indigenous peoples and on evaluating the impact on marine shipping, and that is exactly what we are doing. The Conservative approach for 10 years failed to get our exports to new markets. That's why we knew we needed to do it in the right way, which includes an oceans protection plan that makes faster spill response, more towing capacity, a plan to protect marine mammals. We are continuing to fight climate change with a plan to put a price on pollution. That is what this government is doing.
The Honourable Member.
Speaker, for more than a decade, the Harper government cut frontline staff, closed offices, and balanced the budget on the backs of veterans. In 2015, they even closed an entire floor at the Camp Hill Veterans Memorial Building in Halifax. Can the Right Honourable Prime Minister please describe the steps our government has taken at Camp Hill to respond to the growing needs of veterans of the more recent conflict and of those who serve our allies? Thank you.
Order. I've had no trouble hearing the questions until now. And so I encourage members to listen and to wait their turn if they want to speak. Order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake for his tireless advocacy, his hard work, and the ferocity with which he defends our veterans. We all want the best for veterans and their families. That's why we invested $10 billion into new benefits and services for them, including reopening the 9 offices shuttered by Conservatives, hiring more than 630 new frontline staff, delivering on our promise to reinstate that pension for life. Last fall, we made 25 more beds available at Camp Hill and Halifax for Allied and modern-day veterans. The Conservatives paid lip service. We delivered them.
Order. Perhaps some members for Brantford, Brant, and Caribou Prince George didn't hear me a moment ago. I would encourage members to wait till it's their turn to speak, which may come at some point, if they cooperate, of course. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, between September 4th and the shuffle, did the Prime Minister express his support for a special agreement for SNC-Lavalin? There were only 2 options, yes or no. Mr. Speaker, despite the words and actions by the Conservatives, we will always defend jobs. We will always seek to maintain good jobs across the country, including the 9,000 jobs affected under SNC-Lavalin, but we will always do so by respecting the independence of our justice system and the rule of law. Those are the responsibilities that we have, and we take them very seriously. We will always seek to defend good jobs across the country in the right way.
Opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The December 5th meeting between Gerald Butts and the former Attorney General, it is reported that Mr. Butts told her to go and see the clerk of the Privy Council, Michael Wernick. Now, if the decision had already been made by the independent top prosecutor in Canada on September 4th, and if the Prime Minister had already indicated that it was the Attorney General's decision to be made, why would she have to go and visit the clerk of the Privy Council?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government works in an ongoing fashion to make sure that we are standing up for good jobs right across the country and doing it in respect of the independence of our judicial system and the robustness of the rule of law. That is something that all Canadians expect of us, that we fight for their jobs right across the country, and we will always do that. It's telling right now that we see the Conservatives are saying that they will not. They do not stand up for good jobs across this country. They do not stand up for good jobs wherever they are. We will continue to do so, and we will do so in a way that respects the rule of law, that respects the independence of our judiciary.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister can try to hide behind talking points and other members of his Liberal team, but this is about the independence of our judicial system. This is about the rule of law. Now, the Prime Minister has stated that there were many discussions going on, which is why the former Attorney General, and I quote, asked me if I was directing her or going to direct her to take a particular decision. And I, of course, said no. So the simple question is, if a decision had already been made on September 4th, why would she have to ask him if he was directing her?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Conservatives are calling into question the independence of our judicial system and the rule of law in this country. Allow me to reassure all Canadians watching by quoting directly from the Director of the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, who confirmed last week that in every case, prosecutors, quote, exercise their discretion independently and free from any political or partisan consideration.
The Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, again, why did the Prime Minister leave the impression with the Attorney General that there was something going on? He said, and I quote, the former Attorney General asked me if I was directing her or going to direct her to take a particular decision. And I, of course, said no. So the question remains, why did the former Attorney General think that she needed to ask that? If the decision was already made, why would she have to go and get clarification if he wasn't, in fact, attempting to interfere?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, all Canadians who've been watching this government over the past 3.5 years know full well that we will always stand up for good jobs, we will always stand up for Canadians, and we will always do so in a way that respects and upholds our institutions, including the independence of our judiciary and the rule of law. These are principles that are at the core of what this government does. It was principles at the core of why Canadians elected us in 2015, and we have stayed true to those principles of both serving Canadians and defending the independence of our institutions.
Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Speaking of the rule of law, a new report reveals the government has abjectly failed to consult Indigenous peoples on recovery strategies for threatened species. Chief Byron Louis has shared the extinction of a species has the potential to extinguish Indigenous rights. Frustrated with government inaction, the Mikisew Cree sought intervention by UNESCO and have joined the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation Court to have their rights upheld. When will this Prime Minister stop with the platitudes and actually deliver on his legal responsibilities to First Nations?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we are always ensuring that we protect and recover our species that are at risk. Robust recovery strategies and action plans are there to grow and sustain populations, and the work that we do is always based on science, and this work is always done in consultation and partnership with Indigenous groups as well as all stakeholders. This is something that if we're going to do, we need to do it together, and that is part of reconciliation.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi.
Speaker, Mr. Nelson White from Akwesasne First Nation has invested a lot of his own money to fund the White Pine Healing Lodge to support those in his community who suffer from addiction. The project was created as a response to the state of emergency due to the alarming rate of suicide and substance abuse. He has the support of the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. Government keeps saying it's a good project, but without funding in the coming weeks, there will be no healing lodge. Will this government deliver the money, or will it let down the people of Akwesasne?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the work done on this important issue by the community of Akwesasne and recognize that the Minister is fully aware of this request, understands how important it is, and will have more to say in the coming weeks.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, on December 5th, when Gerald Butts met with the Attorney General at a hotel in downtown Ottawa, it's clear that the SNC-Lavalin case was discussed. Who asked for that meeting?
You're right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, we will stand up for good jobs for Canadians. We will stand up for the independence of our judiciary and the rule of law. The trust that Canadians have in their institutions is extremely important to us, and that is why we look forward to the processes underway, both at the Justice Committee and indeed at the Ethics Commissioner investigation, so that Canadians can continue to have full confidence in our democracy and in the institutions that serve them.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, people who are innocent usually don't have trouble answering simple questions, especially when they're yes and no. Yeah. Gerald Butts claims to be innocent, but innocent people don't tend to resign from their jobs. Did the Prime Minister ask Mr. Butts to resign, yes or no?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Gerald Butts' statement speaks for itself. He made this decision because he felt it was important for the government to move forward. His dedication to this country, to this government, to the work that we are doing to give a real and fair chance for everyone to succeed continues, and I thank him deeply for his service to Canada.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Move forward from what, Mr. Speaker? Yeah. The Prime Minister is saying that nothing happened. All along, he's saying that nothing improper was done. All along, he's saying that he didn't do anything wrong and people in his office didn't do anything wrong. And yet we have the facts that the former Attorney General was removed from her post. She then resigned from Cabinet. The Principal Secretary has now resigned. So what exactly was Mr. Butts moving on from if nothing improper happened?
Exactly.
Honourable Prime Minister.
This government continues to focus on the things that matter to Canadians, like delivering a Canada Child benefit that helps 9 out of 10 Canadian families. Moving forward, the way we lowered taxes on the middle class and raised them on the wealthiest 1%. We continue to focus on the upcoming budget, which is going to continue to deliver for Canadians in real ways as we grow the economy in ways that work for the middle class. Unfortunately, under 10 years of Stephen Harper, the benefits to the wealthiest and the well-connected did not grow the economy. That's why we focused on the middle class and will continue to focus on delivering tangibly for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton West will come to order. Order. I've already asked my honourable friend from Caribou, Prince George, to, again. Order, please.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint Louis. Mr. Speaker, innovation in the auto sector is transforming the industry, which is one of our biggest sources of exports. Be it self-parking, automatic braking, or driverless technology, cars of the future will not only be autonomous, but also connected. Can the Prime Minister tell this House of the efforts and steps undertaken by the government to make Canada where cars of the future will be built? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for Lac Saint Louis for his hard work and leadership as part of our caucus and for his question. We support Canadian workers to ensure that Canada is a global leader in the new economy. We announced $40 million to assist a BlackBerry QNX to design and develop a new platform for cars of today and the future. This investment will create 800 good middle-class jobs, make our cars safer and more secure, and help Canada to remain a global innovation hub.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's incumbent upon the Prime Minister to provide some transparency in this very serious scandal. These are major allegations of interference in an independent prosecution. Now, outside of an investigation by the RCMP, the only way for the Prime Minister to clear the air is by having a public inquiry. Canadians are tired of taking his word for his version of events. They're tired of Liberals getting together with other Liberals to come up with a storyline that they will then try to hide behind. So, yes or no, will the Prime Minister agree to holding a public inquiry so that Canadians can get answers to these questions right?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We have tremendous confidence in the processes that are in place to move forward, including an investigation by the Justice Committee in which the committee members are independent in their decisions on how to proceed. And we also have tremendous confidence in the officers of Parliament. In this case, the Ethics and Conflict of Interest Commissioner, who will be pursuing an investigation on this matter. These are things that we take seriously, and Canadians need to know that there are processes in place to move forward on this issue.
Député de Trois-Rivières.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, now it's Manitoba's turn for a major derailment of a train carrying flammable material. With more and more longer trains and an increasingly deregulated environment, the possibility of a disaster like the one in Lake Megantic is always possible. Clearly, people are concerned and don't want to relive a tragedy like that. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Transport says a lot but doesn't take any action. Can the Prime Minister demand that his minister will take action to protect our citizens? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank our Minister of Transport for the excellent work that he does. He takes these issues very seriously, including protection of Canadians and rail safety. We acknowledge that one of the safest way to carry our resources is through pipelines, and that is why we're proceeding in the right way in accordance with the court's ruling on Trans Mountain to ensure that it is done properly, to keep people safe and to export our resources.
Mr. Speaker, thanks to the hard work of Canadians, Canada's economy is strong and growing, creating more jobs, creating well-paying jobs for the middle class and people working hard to join it.
More Canadians are working, and families have money to spend on what is important for them.
Please update the House on the next steps in our proven plan to strengthen and grow the middle class.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Our government is making smart, responsible investments in the middle class, and Canadians are seeing the concrete results.
The typical middle-class family is $2,000 better off this year than in 2015. But, Mr. Speaker, we know there's more to do, and that's why I'm so pleased to announce that on March 19th, we'll be introducing Budget 2019, the next steps in our plan to ensure middle-class optimism and an economy that works for all Canadians.
Bravo! The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has just expressed his confidence in the Justice Committee's work to get to the bottom of this very serious scandal. We know that last week the government instructed Liberal members of that committee to block Conservative and NDP attempts to get a full witness list in front of the committee. The members of the committee admitted that they received that list from government offices. So, if the Prime Minister has so much confidence in the Justice Committee's work, will he allow Gerald Butts to testify under oath at that very committee?
We saw under 10 years of Stephen Harper's government. We respect the independence of parliamentary committees, and parliamentarians on those committees get to make determinations on how they choose to move forward in their own way. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we will always respect the independence of committees.
Order. The Honourable Member for Beauce.
After being lobbied by the SNC-Lavalin, this government changed the criminal code and tried to cut a deal to avoid a trial. two former SNC executive just had their corruption cases thrown out of court because of unrealistic delays. And we learned that SNC has received more than $2 billion in government aid since 2002. Will the Prime Minister recognize that crony capitalism is an unjust system that must be eradicated?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will always stand up for good jobs right across the country, including in companies like SNC-Lavalin. This is something that Canadians expect of us and something we will continue to do. We will continue to recognize that government has an important role to play in making sure that Canadians can find good jobs right across the country and creating the conditions for success. We will continue to do that, Mr. Speaker, in a way that respects both our institutions and the rule of law.
It being 3:06, pursuant to order made on Tuesday, February 19, 2019, the House will now proceed to the taking of the